your mind. Now I want you to step back from your mind. Let your mind hang out there and you step back away from it this morning. When a thought starts coming in, stop it. You're going to hang out in the eternal now. You're living in the present moment. Stop all thoughts. Keep relaxing. Relaxing. As you relax, let yourself expand. Don't be afraid to let yourself go. Everything will be all right. Keep expanding. Become unlimited. Keep pulling away from your mind. Keep relaxing. Surrender to the light. Let the light come through you. Become the light itself. Relax. Relax. Okay. Now, hope we're all relaxed. For those of you that are out there traveling, keep going. Well, we've been imparting a lot of information through these last couple of days. And as you can see, I rarely keep to the outline. So, but I listen to what you're telling me. And so I have to go with that flow. So let's go in any area that you feel confused about or that we need to talk about. Let's do that. And another question is that Jennifer is willing to go over all the herbal formulas with you, if you want to do that. Good, that'll be okay. Good, 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 good. Get ready, Jeannie.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Dr. Rush, can you explain when you would use one hormone over another, like example, if someone has, if they have two or more endocrine system problems, would you assume that that would be the pituitary, or would you go after each of those endocrine systems?
That's a good question. Asking if you have multiple glandular problems. Well, on these glandulars, these are protomorphogens, and they've done radioisotope work with these particles to see why glandulars work if they're digested just like any other protein. How do they work? And so there's been a lot of work. I used to have Dr. Royal Lee's original works. It was back in the early 70s, late 60s. That was standard process was just getting a hold, and they were hot. And touted to be all organic and all that, raising their own cattle. They kind of blew us a lot of wrong information in my opinion. But if you know there's a pituitary problem, and you see a parathyroid problem, I generally use a glandular for the pituitary, 1 bottle, and I only use one in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, evening. That's BID, 1 BID, twice a day. And I only use 1 bottle because the pituitary is a very little bitty fella. And even at that, if someone gets a blood work up during that, the TSH of the blood work could be very high. One is always asymptomatic with that, meaning there's no symptoms with that. But I only like to hit it a little bit. But then I like to pick that parathyroid up because you got someone that's bruising easy or someone that's highly depressed and all that. You're trying to rebuild bones and structure and everything else. That parathyroid is excellent to have. Now the thyroid produces calcitonin. So the thyroid also is the partner to this. And it also deals with the calcium transport. So you've got parathormone and calcitonin, both used to pull, to borrow, to put back calcium out of structures as needed for what conditions as a rule? Acidosis. Because the whole gig here is if acids win, you lose. Your body loses anyway. And then you lose because then you're stuck with something that's hurting you and it takes your attention away from being the all that you are. Just another little, pain. So I do that. I like the endocrine gland formulas. If you have someone who doesn't want glandulars, I do the endocrine glands. And sometimes if you have real gland suppression, then I'll use the endocrine gland formulas. And Jennifer will get more into that as she goes through her herbal side. And then after she's done, we're going to rip into your protocols. And it'll start making more sense as we start working on the protocols. And they're not difficult. You want to keep it simple. It's so simple, it's frightening for the intellectual mind. But we also are not stupid. You know what I mean? So it's good to know the body a little bit. There's only a few glands and only a few organs, and you have blood and lymph, nothing to get all shook up about. Sometimes when knowledge comes in or information comes in, if you're not used to things, it kind of seems like a lot. But if you just relax and let it sit in, this body's just a conscious machine that is conscious through the cells that make it up. But then you can keep going down into the blood and into the lymphatic fluids, and you have consciousness there. There isn't anything that's not conscious. Hard to fathom that. Hard to fathom that energy makes up everything. In physics, this desk is not solid, right? Nothing's solid. There's always spaces between all atoms. So there's nothing solid. It appears that way. And that's what I'm saying about frequencies. We have to understand, we're using the Hubble telescope and we're looking out, we're seeing some unreal stuff. And it just gives us, when you look at the different, like the Milky Way and all these different galaxies, my God, our galaxy is just so little compared to all the other ones. It's like, and ours is staggering. It's unfathomable. But if you're pulling back out of the body where you're getting larger in your ability to see, then you see the play on the tapestry of God consciousness, on the tapestry of creation. So from one view, you can see the beauty like in the restricted areas, and then when you get outside of limitation, you can see the dance of all creation. It's amazing. So, but everything's frequency. So in each frequency, there is life. And it's just hard to understand that when you're so solidified in your attention in the physical world. Because that's where your attention is, and that's what's real to you in the moment. Withdraw your attention off of that and move it, that becomes unreal, and where you put your attention now is electrified and becomes real. You ignite the light in everywhere you put your attention. And that's the secret of moving out of the body and moving to places, is withdrawing your attention from one place and simply moving it to another. The problem in our education and everything, when soul gets here and you're birthed through a body, then everything is tying you to this world. Everybody gives you things to play with, and then you learn languages, and then everything starts tying you to desires and everything else, and we just we're pulled in and locked here. But really, you see a little newborn, you can tell that they're not totally here yet, right? They're in and out, moving in and out, you know. Yeah. We solidify their attention here, but if we get, develop more spiritually, we'll be able to understand. I always thought Montessori teaching should be a little higher than it is in that regard, and helping, the children to, because they've got the right thinking and focus in a way, but it's teaching children to that they're not the body, but they're here, and hello, and, getting into some higher level communications and things like this. Right now, the conversation's over Barbie, over the Barbie eating a dead animal, and, Gilda did this, and, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could touch base on the children detox and the dog detox.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you asked that. So on the gland thing, I just use the endocrine glands when I want to hit them all. You can hit the adrenal glands pretty hard, because these guys, they just can get hit. They're just so low here. But I think one always should remember the pituitary, the thyroid, and the parathyroid. We'll get more in those as we go on here. When you're detoxifying, there's no question that we have to get as close and as high as amount of energy and intelligence as we can to assist the body to detoxify, obviously. So obviously, by now that withdrawing digestive energy is vital to the body having energy to clean itself. And it's just common sense. So once we withdraw that energy, so you're looking for the easiest to digest, foods that might have a little cleansing effect, and what side of chemistry would offer that? Astringents, fruits, but the astringent value in fruits. Vegetables, someone said on YouTube, vegetables are high in astringents. No, really. You don't use green juices to clean the shower door off, but you could go get some lemon juice.
Nice. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that astringents are that part of chemistry. We think of chemistry as just in plants as vitamins and minerals. Let me tell you, there's so many other principles, from the flavonoids and flavonoids to the alkaloids to, you name it, saponins. There's all kinds of chemistry in there that do all kinds of things. And we're just now, believe this or not, just now finding out the active principles and naming them in chemistry. Just now you can buy some nice herb books. They're $300 and $400 and $500, but they have the chemistry more. And you get to read that. What you do with it is absolutely friggin' nothing. Because who you going to tell what you know? You're going to confuse your client, and they're going to go, this is, and that's the problem. We've always talked over everybody. We thought, it makes us look good. No, that's not what life's about. So in children, there's no difference. And matter of fact, it's easier to get these children younger on the fruits, because these guys, there's no question in taste. I've always said you can bring in a bunch of second graders and have a big table of food and have half of it vegetables and half of it fruit, and I guarantee you which one's going first. It won't be the veggies. I know kids well. And so this is this is how you start this. Even at that, there might be times where water fasting is appropriate. And we talked about this in the last couple of days, that the toxicity level of Homo sapiens here is so high that you must be careful. Some people can die on these different things. So you have to be very careful in what you do in that respect. That's why the foods are as safe as they can be. And you have, obviously, we're butting against extreme ignorance in the medical community. But if you study chemistry of foods, the richness of the fruits that are grown properly, picked right, okay, that understood, they're rich, they're powerful, they're flavorful, they're neurotic. When you have tree-ripe organic food, you go into a neurotic state. Oh, good. I don't see a lot of people smiling after eating kale. You're going to go, man. Matter of fact, this friend and I, we were you know, we were fruitarians, and we went to the health food store together and got a bunch of medjool dates. By the time we got back, I was so buzzed from the medjool dates, I thought I'd smoked a joint or something. These dates, maybe that was incredible. And you know, and this, I thought this discovery program with the animals getting high was quite appropriate to understand that soul down here often seeks an altered state of consciousness because it's so claustrophobic here. It's so lacking, so limited. Look at these bodies. And you leave a bird in the sky going, oh, if I could only fly. You can't. You can't do it with a human body. You know, that's the thing. Each level has its own restrictions. The astral world has its own restrictions. The mental world, you hardly feel any restrictions there, to be honest with you. Yes?
Brother Morris, what is that astro tincture coming out?
Pardon me?
Astro travel tincture.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of different types of travel. Twitchell, of course, called it soul travel. And I like Twitchell, Paul Twitchell, because he was the map maker. I mean, a lot of people made the maps to the heavens. Even Jesus had referred to the different rooms in my Father's mansion. And so there's no question. Then when you get into the other Gospels, they just took Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? They were the oldest Gospels. Someone, National Geographic sent me a thing. I work with these guys. They sent me a thing that said that the Bible was written over 1,500 years by 40 people. So you have to understand, you know, that all these spiritual people are no different than you guys. They just found truth. And they realize that there's a lot of levels to God. And to not think that is limiting the Supreme One. And you don't want to limit that infinite being that is the creator of all life. I mean, you say whatever you want. Even if you're agnostic, you got to admit that the beauty of flowers and of different designs is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you just hard to not realize there's some intelligence. And how do you find out? Well, there's only one doorway to understanding God or understanding life, and you're it. There is no other doorway. I remember an astronaut, and there's a tape, one giant leap, and I'd mentioned that. Beautiful music. REM is in there, and they took spiritual music from around the world and put it together in such a way that it's just incredible. And then they took yogas and all kinds of people. Before he died, I think Dustin Hoffman was in there talking about spirituality. And it is really cool. It's just a really nice tape. And you start to realize, you know, in the world over, that we're all the same. We're all discovering what is. But you're the doorway. You're the magic. And sometimes life gets so tough outside that you just give up. You just surrender. And then you got it. When you let go, you got it. You know, we hold on to all these things. And holding on to materiality and thinking there's security within that is ridiculous. This is a birth, life, and death, and everything you have, including your bodies, can be taken away from you. So it's always good to connect with the highest part of yourself you can achieve or you can become aware of. And thought can't take you there. Are we doing on Skype here? Drew, I don't know if he's off of there or we're doing it. So children's detox, it's but children's detox is no different. Like I said yesterday, they like those high fevers, and I put everybody on fruits, you know, just the same. We use the herbs for the babies just as well as the children on up. We have infants. And when you're in trouble, no matter what age you are, it's all dosages. You're doing a drop. I have a little chihuahua. He gets a drop. 2 pounds. He gets a drop. So the weight is the key here. but you're always looking at what system, the lymphatic system, and the connection to the nervous system from there. The worker bee nervous system is, what system is that? The autonomic is the adrenal glands, and that's a part of the lymphatic system as well. So you know, in our conversations, and if you're a practitioner and you start watching this, you'll see that there's kidney problems everywhere. There's a physician in Ireland, and once I turned her attention to the kidneys, I think she called me one day and said, "My God, I see it everywhere. Everybody." I said, "Absolutely, you start seeing it everywhere." But when you realize the body just has so many tissues in it, just so many organs and glands in it, it's no big deal. And each one goes to the running of the machine. Each one has a part and a play in whether those cells get nutrition or cells are able to eliminate their waste. Just like your house is. Your house has a place of rest, but it's also a place where you consume and eliminate, right? And the same thing in your big house.
Dr. Moore, an infant, let's say 3 months,
Okay, an infant 3 months colicky.
Yes.
First of all, whatever the infant is consuming, wrong.
what would you add in supplement?
You would get away from whatever the formula or breast milk or whatever, because the baby's saying nope, and so it's not digesting well. So I would move to coconut water or milk, and then I would start soon into fruits. Real easy to eat fruits, you know, mashed up if you have to, whatever you have to do with that side, or fruit juices. My grandson, he's 2 now, and he started on fruits, I think, at 4 months or something. But anyway, now he's, God, it's unbelievable. There was a case, this is when Nancy Grace, and they had a court TV or something. There was a case down in Miami where a couple had raised their infant on raw. And I forget how old the infant was, but the infant died, and the state went after him. And there's a raw pediatrician in Miami that came to their defense. And what they found was the baby was born with a very small thymus gland. And it, for somehow, I never did know the connection between that. Maybe medical doctors could look at that, but the connection between undeveloped, severely undeveloped, and the thymus gland. I would think pituitary right off. And so, but this, and I was watching this case on TV, and they found him innocent, of course, but this pediatrician, they were trying to say that raw foods was inferior, and it's like, he wasn't having it. And it was obvious that it wasn't inferior. It was the genetics within the baby that created the problem. So you have to stand strong and realize no matter what a medical doctor says, and I don't care what level that guy or gal is, there's nothing more nutritious than raw foods. You can't prove in any way, chemically or through physics, the 2 main sciences on the planet, where cooking your food improves it. Never. And you don't see it in nature. Nature doesn't prepare its food. Excuse me, you don't see a gorilla or orangutan going out there, let me start a fire and get this stuff cooked up. You don't see that. And the meat eaters definitely do not cook their meat. You know what happens? We've seen stories about this where you feed baby calves pasteurized milk. They can get extreme diarrhea and die within a few months. Same thing, cooked foods, feed your animal cooked foods. The vet will tell you that. You don't feed your animal off the table, they get the same what? In his terminology, diseases you do. If you realize we're all a species with very similar organs and glands, because each body has to go perform. Each body is designed to perform in its own atmosphere or environment. But you have similar things going on, how the body's made up and tissues and things like this. So it's not strange or whatever. You're going to put your horse on a detox, you're going to put your dog on a detox, you're going to put your baby on a detox. Are we going after the same thing? Keep it simple, hell yeah. I mean, you get tumors in horses, you get tumors in dogs, you can see what you get the same thing. And what system is a tumor or a cyst from? They're not big blood clots. Lymphatic clots. They're lymph clots, if you want to call them that. They're sewage backed up, and the body's smart enough to pocket it. Let me put this as a holding tank. Let me pocket all these acids right now, because the nodes are backed up. I'm not getting rid of these acids, and I'm going to store them. And it does its best to do that. That's why the tumor doesn't kill you. Location, location, location. If the tumor's pressing on blood or pressing on nerve or shutting down a bile duct or whatever, yeah, you're going to have a symptom. But a lot of people walk around with tumors all through them.
How do you address your gut with somebody who is not absorbing nutrients due to like a high inflammatory diet, and then all of a sudden you've got a lot of gut issues and they're not absorbing nutrients? I'm trying to understand the connection of nourishing the gut part.
Say that again? I don't think I understand.
You've got somebody who's been on a high inflammatory diet.
Okay.
And now they've got like leaky gut,
Okay.
so they're not absorbing nutrients.
Okay.
What is the best way to address, to transition into that?
Okay, so she's saying if someone has a high acidic diet, which is going to be a high protein diet, let's face it, and they have leaky gut, whatever that means, and then they're malabsorbed, how do you transition them? Well, to be honest with you, I don't spend much time transitioning people. You know, because it's a money thing, it's a time thing, and I can't do this, I can't do this thing. So I take them right off. I go 100% raw, or at least 80% raw. It depends on the awareness or lack thereof of the individual. You know, how they're willing to rock and roll in this. If it's a very serious, there's other things tied to that, but that's just the problem. And you can back down and start them off at 80% raw, 20% cooked. But in that cooked, what would that be? Just vegetables. You just cook vegetables. That's not starch, that's not protein. You want to get them away from these ridiculous non-food items. Starches, grains. I mean, I even feel sorry for Ethiopia and some of these places that were dumping all the white flour and all the white rice to. And thinking we're giving them food sources. It's better than what they've got, there's no question, I feel, for these people. There's a lot of people out there that people don't realize that are helping these people with farming and windmills and things like this too. And that's what we need to do, is to fight each other and spend all that money. There's so many things that planet can do with itself. They just need to turn that around. I know, it's a mess. But you've got to realize who's running the show. And that is the World Bank. As a matter of fact, John Kerry, remember, just gave a speech to the Trilateral Commission. Years ago, that word was barely spoken. Because this is the people that control you guys. The Trilateral, so often been called the Club of Rome, the World Banks, the Rothschilds, Warburgs, that's all these guys. And let me tell you, they control everything. So you just got to, be aware of what's going on out there. In terms of malabsorption, what system, how would we have malabsorption? Now, isn't it true that when you start detoxifying people, they can see some black plaque, all that mucoid plaque that comes out? It doesn't have to be black. You can see it almost clear. You can also see clear mucus on the wall when you see colonoscopies. And then some colonoscopies. Now, in that book over there is Dr. Jensen's colonoscopy and endoscopy. And take a look at that, because this is a man, my friend, that wrote a book on colon health. And you'll see before the herbs and after the herbs, the difference between Dr. Bernard Jensen, before the herbs and after the herbs. You have to realize that the foods that man eats is very gluey, starchy. It creates plaque in the wall. That can block absorption. But true malabsorption, and Thursday when we get to the eyes, I'm going to show you what your eyes look like with malabsorption. And I've done that on the YouTube too, to get you to understand that what system is blocking absorption. Because when you get in the villi of the bowels, what's there? You got cells and two floods. Now blood, you don't want blood, stagnation of blood, that's an obvious problem. That's death of tissue. But the stagnation of lymph is inflammation. Because why? It controls the acid side of chemistry. So as Marcy pointed out, a lot of is absorbed into the lymphatic system and taken to the liver. So it's a carrier system as well. Your lipids aren't absorbed into the blood. Why wouldn't they be? Can you imagine infecting the blood by viscosity, by absorbing all the lipids people eat right into the blood? They'd be having blood clots all over the place. No, 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 no. So that's the system you have to go after. Because when the kidneys fail to filter this system, it backs up head to toe. So then medical doctors come up with this ridiculous concept that cancer moves on you. For those that know the body, tell me how a cell can be popped out of tissue, carried by maybe a friendly immune cell. Through what? The blood? Cells don't get back. Damaged cells don't go to the blood. You understand why? They're taken to the lymph nodes, where the macrophages are. You don't have macrophages in tissue, because they're the little eaters. To be careful. The body has to be careful how it deals with weaknesses, because weaknesses are dealt with by immune cells. Cells that are weak are terminated. The problem is we're perpetuating the same consciousness in our cells. And as we weaken them, we're perpetuating weaker cells and weaker cells. At a certain point, we can dub that atypical, we can call it a cancer cell, who cares? But it's that system that's key. So when you have a cancer in the liver, and pretty soon you have it in the lungs, cell didn't travel from the liver, find its way through this blood barrage, going backwards against the flow, by the way, finding itself into tissue, scooting in through the connective tissue there, scooting over and saying, I'm a cancer cell, and I'm here to make you one too. It's the same system that's down, and it's down head to toe. So you're going to pop tumors all over the place, and you do. And the ones you see the first is where you're genetically the weakest. And when we get to the eyes, I'll show you what it looks like to prove to you that the lymph system in a genetically compromised area is worse than those that are not. Jensen pointed this out. He also said blood had a somewhat restricted flow in a weaker area. I can't speak to that. I don't know how to determine that one myself. But that lymph system is where you're going after. So I would have, as she goes over these herbs, she'll tell you a little bit about that. But I would get on the bowel formulas, I'd get on the GI brew, and we'll get more to this after her talk.
So when dealing with children and moving them into a raw food diet, a child that's been a failure to thrive, would you recommend any fats in the diet, like coconut oil?
I would say that in the young, I'd be careful with too many oils. Remember, the FDA came after Gerson for using 100,000 units of A and beta carotene. And this is the first time I kind of agreed with them. You have to be careful with too many oils. You know, more isn't better in life, especially in chemistry. You have to be careful. And if you really get a good look at animals, they don't eat like we do. We are hogs. And it's just, we overburden the system big time. And most animals are mono-eaters. Now, I did see an orangutan one time. She picked a fruit off a tree. This was on a Discovery show. And she went and found another fruit, and she set two fruits in front of her. And then she started eating. Well, that's pretty cool. Because mostly, if you look at the primates, they go to one food. Unfortunately, the mountain gorillas, we're pushing them so far up, they have to be green eaters. So we're pushing them up into the mountains. Sad stuff. Sure.
With something like actual coconut meat or...
Well, sure,
olive oil
absolutely,
or
absolutely.
olives.
Fatty acids versus concentrated fat, absolutely.
So would you recommend maybe the fruit, or the fruit fat, like the avocado fat?
Sure,
versus like
absolutely,
oil?
the meat of itself. Or you could take the coconut water, some coconut meat, and grind it up, and create that. Because that's really nutrition. The problem is the coconuts we get in the store is way too ripe. The Thai coconuts, for me, are not ripe at all. If you get, and this was on Survival Man one time, he's on this island, he popped his coconut, and I thought that coconut looked a little old to be able to pull that cone out. You get a coconut just right, And you can pull this whole cone out, the whole white cone out, and start eating it nirvanic. Nirvanic. You get that right coconut in the right stage, and you got it. And that white cone, if you ever had that, that's good. Maybe the meat's about that thick, 1/4 inch or so, but just soft, tender, incredible. We have a problem with the way we get our food. But yeah, coconut milk like that, and you can throw some things in there. You should just remember the dark grapes, the blueberry, these are rich, rich. And remember, when you start working in neurological conditions and you start seeing where you can rebuild an MS client with the fruit and you can't with the vegetables, what do you think about the children that's maturing neurologically? What do you want to put them on then? Heck yeah. You don't want the greens. You're not trying to build E-men. They'll build muscle. The difference between a heaping acid muscle and a raw muscle is night and day. Matter of fact, I don't know how far some of you have gotten, but there's a point where you'll start to feel, when you remove these obstructions out of the body, you'll start to feel that flow of energy into the muscles, and it's like, holy crap, my God. You just start feeling stronger and stronger and stronger. It's unbelievable. And that's what it's about. Yes?
Can you go back and touch more on the thymus plant?
Yeah, you know what? Exactly. I can't tell you that I know an awful lot about it, just where you mature the B cells to the T cells. And the T cells are the, they're both the natural killer cells. And they're just the Marines and Navy SEALs of the body. They're the big boys. They deal, obviously, with the tougher side of immunity. How that thymus gland deals with incomplete growth factors, I just don't know enough about that gland, to tell you the truth. I do recommend some thymus thumping with cancer, and we do hit the thymus gland a little bit with cancer to bring up the T cells, but then we're in the bone marrow building up the B cells. So we're about cleaning and strengthening and rebuilding, not treating and breaking down. Because the more you break someone down, the less they can come out of it. That's common sense. So I don't know that they have physics in their classes. You just can't innervate tissue or innervate an individual and expect them to get to Wellville. It's not going to happen. But the other philosophy, though, you're bringing up consciousness, you're expanding the individual, their happiness, their joy, their flexibility. It's all cool stuff.
Did you speak to pregnancy, detoxing a pregnant woman?
Detoxing a pregnant woman. When you're after someone with cancer, you're going to treat them all the same way, because you're not after cancer, are you? You're not after a disease. That's ridiculous. It's just it's hard to talk about these things without that, because our society is so ingrained with the concept of disease, like diabetes and things like this. Never claim your stuff, man. Never claim your stuff. These aren't diseases. If you've got diabetes, you've got cancer, it's about the cells. What's affecting the cell? Right? You got two fluids strictly affecting a cell. All right? Yeah, it's about chemistry. Absolutely about it. We're steeped in it. But you have to look at these two systems and how they deal with chemistry. And particularly where we're having trouble, because it's easy to change the diet. It's easy to change the nutritional ingestion of someone. If they're willing to do it, it's easy. You know, eat fruit all day long, have a salad. Or even if you had fruit in the morning and a couple salads in the afternoon. If you want to detox, that's different. If you want to detox, the problem is you have to detox to get to Wellville. Because detox is how you get in and rehydrate and revitalize and rebuild. It's not just detox like an alcoholic would detox or something like that. And that's part of the problem with the name detoxification. We need to broaden the scope of that understanding. I'm working on a book called The Art and Science and Practice of Detoxification. And I got about 6 books I'm writing all together. Some of them we started years ago. And we're just, it's a massive thing. I mean, I've written manuals and things for the company for so many years and in books, and then, then we do the videos, and it just becomes overwhelming, all the things you do. Twitchell, if you look at Paul Twitchell's books ever, he had 4 or 5 typewriters going at the same time. And if you'll look at the amount of volume of information this individual produced in such a short time, it's staggering.
Yeah.
And that information is hardly found. You'll find a lot of it in the old Sanskrit stuff. And I mean, it's just cool to look at some of the history and some things that sound new that were brought out from some of these archives and some of these beings that are working with people. It's amazing. It's all such a maze. So opening this door to life and vitality and love and the allness of things is an incredible door to open. Then you realize you've been leading little pay-to-place lives, Detoxing a pregnant woman is no different than detoxing anything else. I don't think I've had one that had fetus. I think we've done pretty good at saving them, but it is possible. And this is particularly if the fetus is a weak fetus and nature says no, she's going to lose it. We in our emotional components and religious components don't get with that. They don't understand it because they haven't been looking at life like they should. Understanding the soul is the reality. Don't think my body's reality. You can burn it, cook it, I don't care. Because it's just a cell function. Electromagnetic function. You got nervous systems and things like this. The consciousness, the awareness, that's you. And that can move anywhere you want it to move because you are ultimately everywhere. Someone asked me the other day if I knew when I come visit everybody. Not always, but if I sit back, I can see you guys. I can see different situations going on and stuff like that. It becomes overwhelming. So there's a part of your allness that you're not going to be consciously aware of all the time and don't want to be. It's too much. For the limited part down here while you're in a body, or you'll burn your body. We're talking about people that have auto-incineration type experiences. I've had my body burning so bad that my mate would go, oh God, I got to get out of here to see you burning. And you just have to be careful with that. It's hard not to. It's joyful. That sort of thing. So you don't want to stop. After Jennifer gets done, we'll get into just a little bit of how we detox. Really, what do we go after? But it's obvious already, we're after the lymph system. Well, if I add the kidneys into that lymphatic system and the adrenals on top of the kidneys, it starts to persist. What else do we look at as an eliminating organ lymphatically?
Skin.
Huh?
Skin.
Which?
Skin.
Absolutely. You guys are good. The skin. Well, what kind of controls the ability of the skin to eliminate? The thyroid. Oh, you guys are good. Body temperature. If you're cold and you're sitting with a basal temperature in the 95s or 96s, you're going to have to get it up there to sweat a little bit. How about those that oversweat? What's that tell you? They're not filtering through the kidneys. Once you get the kidneys filtering, they'll stop oversweating. How about those that sweat just in the palms of the hands and the feet? Their skin's backed up subcutaneously. Their thyroid is down and the body's trying to push it out of the biggest force possible. Your body's trying to do everything it can to get rid of this stuff. That or isolate it. Body's smart. Remember that. Intelligence, awareness.
How do you boost up the thyroid?
Pardon?
How do you boost up the thyroid?
You boost up a thyroid. How do you boost up a thyroid gland? Well, good question. Now think about this for a minute. When you have a cold and flu-like symptom, you notice all the mucus that comes out. Those of you that get clean and start drinking a little, cheating with a little milk or a little cheese, starts to, oh God, I'm starting to get all pumped up again. Guess what else gets stopped up? All the way down, all the way in bronchi, lungs. You got to feel the mucus in the voice box rattling. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, the thyroid is full of mucus too. Everything has a mucosa. Remember, mucosa, muscle, connective tissue. And so you got mucus in the thyroid gland. How do you fix a thyroid? You clean it. But can we inspire it to function a little better without totally getting it clean? Yeah, absolutely. Glandulars. Very fast way to pull up the thyroid gland.
Is that animal-based?
It is animal-based. If you don't want to do that, then you get, that's okay, honey, then you get into the herbs that turn out. Now, what herbs particularly are good for the glands? Anybody get an overview on that? The berries, all the berries, all the berries. And remember how they used to say each berry looks like the gland it controls, it fixes?
Wow.
Saw palmetto, excellent for the thyroid.
Which one?
Saw palmetto. Now, what if this is really not the class to get heavy into that, but remember the pituitary gland and the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. If it's low, the person's short. You know, we're going to be looking at the pituitary. You're not going to hit these things very hard. These are not like hormones or steroids. We don't use that component of life. Well, we don't want to use that component in life because we see what the medical doctors learned and still haven't changed. They know you're going to, this one medical doctor told a client of mine, she went in to get a script for a blood workup. And she was talking to her medical doctor, and he was asking her what the problem was, and she was saying about the thyroid. Oh no, something with the adrenal glands. And she said, I'm going to, I'm checking with my hormones and steroids. I want my blood work up and everything else. He says, well, I can help you with your adrenal glands. I've got a steroid that'll help that. She said, oh no, I know these steroids will lower my adrenals production of, let's say, cortisol. He said, oh no. He said, no, it doesn't hurt them. What it does, it puts them to sleep for a while, but when they wake up, they'll be stronger. Verbatim is what he told me. And I'm looking at that going, there's quirky stuff out there, isn't there? That really hurts the person. So if you're already compromised in your adrenal steroids, and then you take adrenal steroids because you're low in them, what does the adrenals do? They step back and step back. That's why you titrate off of steroids. The adrenals have got to wake back up. Was that worth it? Not really. Was someone genetically compromising the adrenals and you're slamming them even more? That's your emotions. That's your nervous system. That's your anxiety. That's your breathing. That's your heart pumping. That's your bowel moving. Those adrenals are everything. I mean, you think the pituitary is the master gland. It's so small. But the adrenals, much bigger, and holy moly.
You said the pituitary versus the TSH.
ESH, pituitary.
What does it mean if the TSH is low?
Good question. Then either the thyroid is so low and it's actually overworking the pituitary, or you've got some acidosis or stimulation of the pituitary gland. Now, what would stimulate tissue? What could create a hyperactivity within the body? Acid, the same thing that causes hypo. Everything goes to this, remember, acute, subacute, chronic, and then degenerative. If I went to mall and got mucus in my throat from that ice cream, which I created an acute issue, if I suppress that with something, probably antibiotics or something, thinking I caught something and this is a bacterial problem, I would have shoved that deeper in me, and then I would begin to start a subacute stage. In that subacute or subacute stage, I can create hyperactivity of tissue. Acids can create hyperactivity, but eventually acids destroy. Acids are corrosive. So you can just have a head full of mucus and inflammation and have hyperthyroidism, but you have to be careful because that's also where you get the pituitary tumors right now are very popular on the market, if you haven't noticed. Big trouble in Middle Texas. We got a lot of problems now. I've been watching, in 40-some years of doing this, you get to watch how things mature in terms of weaknesses. And I'm going to tell you, this is a big, you got tumors all over people's necks, palate cancer's high, eye cancer's high. I mean, brain cancer's all over the friggin' place.
In children,
Oh, that's the scary part. But when you understand that our high-protein diets have been damaging our kidneys and our GI tract, in the 1900s, early 1900s, mid-18 to later 1800s, physicians, medical, naturopathic, homeopathic, tore this up. They looked at the bowel and it's always clean that colon, clean that colon. Well, We also have 22 foot of small bowel attached to that. You got to get into that GI tract. Well, we've got to get into the GI tract, or we can clean the canal out. But what makes up the canal? Tissue. You know, when you take a scope up about a colon, you got about 5 foot of colon, 22 foot of small. You stretch that out like Marcy did on that string and look up at, okay, but what about the wall that makes up that garden hose? You can have a tumor on the outside of the bowel. Colonoscopy, these things only see very limited stuff. The iris, which was discovered by a surgeon in the first place, that shows us what's in the wall. No other look. Because x-rays will not see it until it's dense enough to become a mass enough to be able to kick our radiation back to us so we can see a form there. If not, you can't see inflammation with a CAT scan. Just depends how dense that lymph has gotten in that area. And the reader of that, and the ability of the reader of the x-ray to determine that. And that's not well thought in allopathic stuff. You know, most women are familiar with pap smears. But I have a friend that's a granddaughter of Dr. Not Greek, Papalopoulos, whatever his name was, that invented the pap smear. And she came to me with problems with that. So she developed a team. There was 4 of us. I was the only naturopath, and there was 3 medical doctors. One of them, they were a little bit more aware, so they learned to they were trying to teach women how to do partial hysterectomies or partial tissue removal instead of the whole thing and all this kind of stuff. I'm the only one, boy, we're traveling lecturing about cervical cancer awareness. And the whole time, I'm the only one that says, don't you want to know what causes it and how to fix it? And each one of these medical doctors on our tour read their talk. And I'm sitting there going, you know, boring. You know, you got to know your stuff. So, same problem. Yeah, I know. Same problem. What's a uterus made out of? What's the ovaries made out of? Exactly. Cells and 2 fluids. So when you see fibroids, what's going on here? When you see endometriosis, what's going on here? You're burning. Notice that you can burn so hot that the uterus will weld itself to the bowel. A lot of hysterectomies, surgeons are cutting the uterus off of the colon. That's what acids do. So fibrocystic, the same way. These were acids. And acids destroy and make things hard. Look what x-ray, too much x-ray. You'll make your tissues as hard as the top of that desk. It's dangerous out there. I've got a lot of women that did mastectomies and leave them alone. Because you don't know what causes it. They don't. Of course, if that lady doesn't fix the kidney channel, she'll grow another tumor on the chest wall, get a lot of those in there. But no, they're radiated. So now you burn what? The lungs. I had one mama of 5. I had a lot of mama of 5s. But I had one mama of 5 that her chest was like petrified wood. They burn her so bad. And it's like, what in the hell is wrong with that? It's insanity. Insanity. To deal with a lymphatic problem. Of course, that didn't deal with the lymphatic problem. So they go ahead and die. See, so understanding that lymphatic system and the connection of the eliminative organs to that is essential to get your clients well and that you're focused each and every case. I don't care if it's a cold and flu-like symptom or it's raging cancer in them. It's just the strictness of how you're going to go about it could be a little deeper. Because when you're dealing with someone that's raging with inflammation and burning their cells and converting cells, are you going to sit there and give them a little 80% raw and a little 20% cooked and wait till they get used to that and then take them on? Hell no. You're going to say, drop me 30. That is great days fast. Of course, I generally say 40. I had a little 23-year-old come in one day, and she brought her friend in, 22 years old. She had a like a golf ball sized tumor on her breast. And I was talking to her about this and the raw and everything and got her started. And I said, you know, you could try a little 40-day fast. If you do 10 or 20, that'd be okay. But right then, where a lot of people were doing 40-day grape fasts. And she said, well, I'll think about it. So her and her friend left. I saw them a couple months later. They were back in. She brought her friend back in. And I said, how'd you do, sweetheart? And she said, I did really well. Me and my friend both went on a 40-day fast, and we felt so good we're going on another. And by the way, this is half gone. I had another lady once, she was from the UK, flew over here. She had tumors all over her legs. And I sat her down, and I said, oh, you're from Europe, right? And she said, yep. I said, you milk drinker? She said, but of course. So I'm talking to her about that. Now, she had been flying over to the Mayo Clinic here in Florida for a number of years. And she still has all these tumors. And I said, just out of curiosity, what does the Mayo Clinic have you doing for that? She said, wrapping my legs in cellophane. Like sequential leg pumps. I had those all gone within a couple of months, but one little one, she was so pissed off. She spent thousands and thousands of dollars at the Mayo Clinic. Wow. Now, while they're playing with cellophane around the leg, that's getting worse. Her lymph system. And that is the acid system. So she could have died during that period of wrapping cellophane around her legs. So we all, as practitioners, including MDs, need to unite under one cause. And that's the cause of wellness. Because nothing else matters. We're physicians. Wellness is what's important. I was taking orientation at a hospital one time, and I had a MD from Beirut. And me and him was talking. He said, you know, you MDs, I said, I'm not an MD, I'm a naturopath. He said, you American MDs are capitalists in Beirut, we're considered vegetarians. He says, I'll take a chicken to help somebody. I said, well, I'm a naturopath, and that's the way we think too. But it just shows you the difference in concepts of practitioners the world over in some places, you know. Yes?
I got a good question. When is the time you try the herbs, you try the diet, and you're still not getting fully the way you want to get? When is that time to step up to the line?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you really have really, you know, decayed adrenals, and you'll see on the eyes that this is the one thing that's in our face. If you're born without a chronic adrenal gland, you are one of the few lucky ones in the world, because most adrenals are at least chronic. And you can hit them with herbs and diet, and it'll be a while. So when you have an extreme need to get those kidneys to filtering, I don't care if it is a little animal. Not on them very long. I don't like to keep people on bandwidth very long. You know, the whole idea is to get everything to hold and then come off of it. If they hold, then you're done. If they don't hold, you could use it a little more. But this is just like tissue. It's like a stem cell thinking, like tissue.
But more specific, how many rounds of herbs should you try, and how much of the great fast?
Good question.
You go to the gland?
He's asking me how long should you try a program with the herbs and the diet before you try a glandular? Well, I jump right in and tell you the truth. If you have someone that's opposed to me, I would say keep watching the blood pressures and everything else, because let's talk about blood pressure for a minute. And I know I'm cutting into her time, but I'm sure she's like,
Take your time, it's all right.
blood pressure. What are we looking at when we take someone's blood pressure, and why do we use both arms when we're taking blood pressure? Top number, systolic. What are we looking at? The cardiac punch, the adrenals, neurotransmitters, epinephrine, norepinephrine. That's what we're looking at. What about the diastolic, the bottom number? Kidneys. Kidneys. Medical doctors for years thought 80 diastolic was perfect blood pressure. Are you kidding? Now they lowered it to 75 about 10 years ago, but they lowered the top from 120 to 115. It's like, no, the top's okay at 120. But perfect textbook blood pressure is 120 over 60. What happens if that 60 starts going low into the 50s? You've got weak kidneys. Now, high blood pressure. What if your diastolic is 80, 85, 90? What's going on? You're losing your kidneys. For those that deal with blood work, check your creatinine levels, because as you see high blood pressure going up, you're starting to now lose the kidney. You probably lost filtration years ago. Now you're losing the filtration of the kidney itself, and now you're breaking down kidney tissue, which is the creatinine in your blood work. And it starts to move up from 0.5 to 0.6 to 0.7. When you start seeing 0.7, you're starting to go. Watch it. You'll be 0.8, 0.9. You'll pass 1. Medical doctor still won't do anything about it. I look at that as warning. You're losing your kidneys. You've got a lot of inflammation. If you have one creatinine, you've got a lot of inflammation in the kidneys. They're swelling. Your urine is getting restricted. It's possible if you're female to pop ovarian cysts, and of course males are going to get prostatitis, no question. And then you start having what? Oh, my lower back. L4, L5, kidney vertebrae. You're going to lose those. Now the hips, now the knees. It's all about acids and the lack of removal of them. And as you keep working, the kidneys will come into your face over and over. Their gigantic role in the body. It's been overlooked. So that diastolic. Now, why both arms? Why do we check both arms? Because we have a kidney and adrenal on both sides. And if you didn't have the iris to be able to see which one's weaker, you're going to tell in blood pressure. So I've always said high blood pressure is what? Low blood pressure. You've got a high blood pressure case and you start working on it, you get all that inflammation, get these kidneys filtering, everything's going to start going down and down and down. And then, oh, there was 120. Uh-oh, I'm still going down. Because that's how you lose tissue in the body. You lose it because you lose your kidney filtration. The adrenals are weak. As the kidneys swell and become inflamed from it, it pushes the adrenal pressure up. And then you see those neurotransmitters going up. Stimulation, but tell you the truth, once you remove that, get the kidneys filtering, high blood pressure is easy to remedy. What if it's swinging? High one day, low the next, high one day. Good girl, cerebellum. That's what? Inflammation. What's another word for inflammation? Acidosis. And what system deals with acids? The lymph. Oh, God, stiff, tight shoulder. Oh, my cerebellum. That's dizziness, equilibrium, vertigo. MS always has that. All of them always has that. And that's where the parasympathetic part of the worker bee goes right in here to the brain. But also your optic nerves wrap around and right into there too. So when you get swelling back there, you can feel lightheaded, dizzy, blood pressure swinging. When you're relaxed and everything's settled, the blood pressure's down, you get tight, it goes up. You can't treat that kind of blood pressure. You give someone a high blood pressure medication then, and when they're in the low times, they have hypotension. They might be taking another trip. So being smart is what I hope that I can teach you guys in detoxification and how you deal with humanoids. Yeah.
Still a little bit confused on the water retention is what to do if somebody starts retaining water within a stream.
Okay, if someone's starting to retain water, and I'll tell you, you can't control it completely because people are so acidic that even the water in the fruits and the vegetables, you can hold that. But it's a hydrating type of water because it's electrolyte rich. So you're going to start the process of hydration when you start that. So there might be some degree of swelling in the body you can't control. But if they start, shortness of breath, you start obvious edema, you're going to, I would get away from the lips and hammer the kidneys. Or go to a medical doctor and get Lasix or something. Get something to pull it out. A lot of our kidney formulas are diuretics. But, and these are the cases where you just can't tell them to go drink a bunch of water and they'll be okay. That's not true. And so fluid intake is, especially with lung cancer, because you're going to get some cases of lung cancer where their lungs are filling up. Now they could go get sprayed, but I wouldn't advise that. They spray the lining of the lungs so they don't hold water. It's like, oh, excuse me. I mean, the person's terminal anyway, right? No. So, you can go and get aspirated. In a lot of cases, they have to go to the hospital every once in a while and get the lungs aspirated. Not a fun experience, but it keeps them alive. So we're delicate, but if you keep them moving there, they can always get their lungs aspirated. You keep them moving, you start getting those kidneys filtering, they'll start discharging stuff out of the lungs. Pretty soon they won't hold water anymore. You got it. Then you're getting past that. And pretty soon they're on the road to wellness at a much faster pace. Wait, what now? Okay. Well, you know, think of the wall of things, and then think of the chambers of things. I can listen to someone's lungs, and they say, "Oh, you're clear. Your lungs are good." Would that be an intellectual statement, or would that be an unintellectual statement? Because where the problems are is always in the chambers. So that's where you see that. You can be clear 1 minute and rattle and rock and roll the next. The problem with scarring, though, comes in with the cells. You hold those acids interstitially too long, and you're going to scar the tissue, whether it's the lungs or wherever you are. You know, cystic fibrosis is a horrid thing. You'd want to work with the parathyroid if you saw calcium problems, but this is totally lymphatic problems, right? And you've got to get these lungs cleaned out, both interstitially through the lymph system, but you're going to see that also discharge into the lungs to hawk out. The body likes to hawk things out. And you can hawk some nasty looking tumors out and stuff from the lungs. We've done tons of lung cancers through the years. Yes?
When you were talking about taking the blood pressure and both arms, if you found an issue on one side and not the other, you're still
Exactly.
You can't distinguish.
Again,
No, I'm just wondering.
you're right. She said if you have, let's say, a very low adrenal gland on one side where your blood pressure is, say, 90 over, say, 65 on one side, and then it's 118 over 70 on the other. Well, you know which side is the problem, but you can't fix one over another.
Okay, yeah.
Well, that's the trouble.
Yeah.
And the same thing, to be honest, with kidney filtration. Take a look at these things about kidney filtration. So it's key to start filtering. But you just can't fix one over another. And the trouble also with this is you have two kidneys dumping into a bladder. So you can have filtration of one kidney and not of the other and think you're filtering your whole body. You'll know which side is not filtering just by how tight you are on this side or whatever. You have two sides. You're bilateral being. You have two sides, separate sides, individual sides, coming together and sharing some common ground. Like I said, you can have 1 foot bigger on one side, one breast bigger on one side, one hand bigger on the other side. That's just you have two independent sides. And people have to realize that. You have two thyroids, you have two parathyroids, you have separateness, but then you have togetherness. Yeah.
What about when somebody has gotten some organs or lymph nodes or things taken out of their body? Do you go slower with them? How are you supposed to?
You know, that's a good question. He said, what if a person has lymph nodes taken out of the body? Do you go slower with them or not? All right, let's look at that. Here's an example. I had a lady in Canada. She had a breast cancer or something. They did the chemo and radiation. Of course, she came back with it all over her. So she's scared. And she wants to do something fast. And I said, honey, I use 2 kidney formulas as it is and 2 lymphatic formulas as it is. I said, that's enough. Because that's a lot of power in the body. Yeah, I want more. I want you to hit me once. I said, I'll probably make the tumors grow. Because if your kidneys can't filter and you're pulling on the lymph system, you can make goiters and tumors grow. So, but for some people that's freak out city. But you've got to get the doorway open. So you could, by pulling too hard on the lymph system, increase tumors. So what do? You back up off the lymph system and focus more on kidney filtration. I go down to 1 lymphatic formula because the kidney has a lymph system in it too. So I've got to get all that opened up. So I back off the lymphatic formulas. This is also about a goiter. While we're going over this, Jen, I think it's important probably that we do, and then we take over that. A goiter, same thing. Now, generally, by the time you see a goiter, you have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's or you've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. So would you then go in and pick up their thyroid gland to get it working? You never want to do that. When you see a tumor on an organ or gland, not so much on an organ, but on a gland, don't make the gland work harder. Don't increase production of cellular waste, or you'll increase the size of the tumor or goiter. I learned the hard way. about that. So I quit doing, working on the thyroid, and I realized, I was increasing the function of the thyroid, which was increasing the input and output, and therefore the output had nowhere to go, so it increased the storage tank that the output was feeding into. But then it's easy to get rid of goiters and things. Most of you know Roseanne Calabrese, big goiter. Those are easy to get rid of. But what do you do to get rid of it? It's a lymphatic problem. You're going to do the same thing in every case. It's not a blood problem. You only have 2 foots to play with, 2 sides of chemistry to play with. But I don't want you to let it leak out too much. It's too damn simple. That's what's hard. The complication of this is your mind. That's the complication of it. I mean, there's some, there's some science involved. There's some understanding of the body involved. Of course. If you didn't have that knowledge and you were just a detoxification specialist and you learned how to just detoxify people, that's okay. You don't have to know the world of chemistry and physics and things like that. Please. Health is so simple, and yet people spend all their money and they search high and search low, and it's like Ponce de Leon. Ponce de Leon, famous down here, was searching for the fountain of youth. And his horse was eating on it all the while.
Oh, gout.
Gout. Well, that's a good question. Gout. Uric. Thank you. Little pinprick acid, ain't it? I think it's probably more like a 2.5 pH, that uric acid. I'm not sure what uric acid pH is. What produces uric acid? Protein. I was in a blood chemistry seminar with a medical doctor, and she had determined she became a naturopath. But she was one of those naturopaths, medical-minded, who had a big farm, and she raised all her own meat. She ate meat, but it was all organic, stuff like that. That's the level she was at. But she had a different way of looking at the blood chemistry in the body, and I was interested in that because I'm a biochemist, and I'm going, what can I learn here? But I'm interested in learning. And so she was going through it, and then everybody was medical in there. I was the only naturopath. I'll come up to her after, and I said, I have people off of proteins, and I still see high uric acid. What's up? She looked at me, and she said, fungus. I'm going, damn, that's the answer right there. You see people with fungus in the toes and fungus in the body, you're going to see a higher uric acid levels. I didn't realize that. And I don't know, I never traced the chemistry of that, but fungus leaves uric acid in the body too. Didn't know that. So uric acid is just another one of those acids. I mean, it doesn't matter which one, does it? It can be carbonic, phosphoric, uric, who cares?
So you go for the lymph?
You go for the lymph. That's the system of the health. You hold acids in the blood. It's a good form of meditation. You last 3 minutes and you're out, baby. This time you probably won't be coming back to this shelf. So you can't acidify the blood. That's insane. You don't dump acids into the blood. There's not that level of protection there. The blood is more viscous. The blood is more water soilless. Parasite baby. She'll tell you, absolutely. The thing is that I think herbs are selective killers of bacterium because you definitely don't want to kill. When you get aware, you don't want to kill bacteria of the body. And a lot of herbs are touted as antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. But if you have, I'll be with you there. Why would someone get fungus in their body? So much fungus. What's up here? Well, we drink beer, we drink things with yeast in it, of course. Bread, yeast bread, and stuff like that. But what really is the issue here?
Sugar metabolism.
You guys are good. You're damn right. Sugar metabolism. Your sugar metabolism is off. You're fermenting your sugars because you're not metabolizing them. Which gland deals with sugar metabolism? Thank you. Cortisol, the adrenal glands, sugar metabolism. So if you see hypo or hyperglycemia, type 2, that's sugar metabolism. What gland are we going to? Adrenals, thank you. Now, type 1, beta cells, islands of Long. But, wait a minute. There was a lady that hurt her leg and she had to have 4 surgeries. After the 4th surgery, She came out with type 1, and she quit menstruating. No one could figure it out. So she came to me, and if I hadn't read this little research that a university did in Canada that showed that a lot of type 1 are neurological type 1s. And when you understand propofol and some of the anesthesia medicines, then you realize that in some level these become neurotoxic. Just like that one baby that died. Normally, a normal person that has good adrenals, good neurotransmitters, don't have a problem with surgeries and anesthetics. But, I mean, look at morphine sulfate. Once you're on morphine sulfate, now I've had kidney stones where that just took the edge off. But if you're going downhill, that'll accelerate your going downhill. Because one of the things you want to consider in your clients is their nervous systems, because that turns on everything. Without the nervous systems, you're nothing. Your heart can't pump, you can't breathe, nothing. That neurological system is everything to you, or to your cells. So I realized that she had so much anesthetics that it slammed her beta cells and her pituitary. So I started enlivening them, enhancing her nervous system, getting that lymph, and just building everything up, hit up the pituitary, and she got out of all of that. Then you have actual weaknesses within the beta cells. But what causes weakness of any cell? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you pass it genetically, and then you start getting genetically weak cells. But what is genetics? DNA chromosomes? Memory. Memory. Cells got memory? Damn right they do. And you can change that, as you can change yours. No one's stuck. There's nothing that's static in creation. You can change as you will. You can take on anything you want. Just remember, when you take it on, you have to experience it. You've entered a bond with it. And you're carrying that around you. You go, I'm done with that ball and chain. You got to do that. That's how you spiritually grow. You start letting go. Buddha said, the detached state. Don't care. As soon as you care, you're trapped. That's the problem. How do you get to a point where you can give divine love and not care? And that's where you have to get. Personal love can rip you. Divine love, there's no saying in spirituality. You don't have to like everything, but you have to love everything. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So in animal breeds that have a lot of different displays.
Oh, they're all canines are kidneys. All canines are well established. All canines, all the way back. Even the Chihuahua, which I have one, all the way back. Hip dysplasia, tumor pops out all over. You have some dogs where they pop out, tumors come and go because they don't have the sweat glands like we do. You see all that. You go after them the same way, though. You go after the kidneys, their adrenal glands, their lymph system. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at all the YouTubers that talking about the dogs that have tumors, now they don't. You can pull them with black sap. The same thing. Absolutely. That's fun to get animals healthy.
My mother has high blood pressure, and her doctor told her to exercise more, lay down. I'm telling her I'll be a kidney stone or anything, but maybe when she exercises, she does her heart rate, and her heart rate will skyrocket.
Thank you. Is that stupid for that medical doctor to recommend that? This is the thing. When you're not filtering acids and your kidneys are highly inflamed and your pressures are up, what benefit would exercise do to you? None, because you're increasing lymphatic load. You're increasing acidosis. And that's why you see her going through that. You would tell her to rest, so what? Now, this is just a little intellectual kick, but why rest as opposed to activity? It's simple. The shift of neurotransmitters in your adrenal glands. You can't have, just like you can't have it all, baby. You can't have pooping and peeing and fighting at the same time. You want that energy to do all that. You want it right there with them. You want all the power on board, baby. And if you don't get it, so that's why stress affects elimination. And if you don't eliminate, you accumulate. And what you accumulate is your nightmare. This is sewage, acid sewage. So your mom needs to settle down, relax, and hit the fruit. Get those kidney formulas, open that up. Because you'll also see all the associated problems with that. All the lymphatic problems with that. Cholesterols go up, blood sugars go up, because the adrenals are affected. The lymphatic system is affected. That's your main immune system. That's the inflammatory system. That's affected. Now you see all those things tied together. Oh, diabetes has cholesterol problems and has all these things. You notice how they lump symptomology together under one roof of a disease. That's stupid. Systemic problems exist when you're not filtering with your kidneys. And you'll see the same systemic problems with everybody. Cholesterols go up, inflammatory markers go up, blah, 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 blah. I'm stiff, I'm sore, I hurt, I pain, all those things like that. So every single case you have, I highly recommend.
He's got a question for you.
Huh?
He has a question for you.
Okay.
Finish.
Oh, I highly recommend you at least do, and Jennifer's going to tell you after the break about the fat board and all this, how you at least start minimally, and there's help out there, and get someone, people can do some things. If somebody starts backtracking, okay, go on. All right, my friend.
He wants to know when you're detoxing a canine, what do you feed them?
When you're detoxing a canine, what do you feed them? You know what? There was a thing on YouTube for a long time about grapes. Grapes kills dogs. My dogs would have been long dead. You know what? You try to go to some raw, if you can. Find there's so many companies now that make superior dog foods, raw dog foods, organic dog foods. I try to move to there. My dogs are fed chicken with vegetables in it. And they just love that up. So I got a little protein for the omnivore part of them, but I got a lot of vegetables. If you'll notice your dogs, if you just feed them proteins, their poop will get nasty. They can bleed rectally, all kinds of things. Even an omnivore, a dog cannot have just protein food. It'll hurt them. They'll be short-lived. You got to give them more veggies. So whatever your dog likes in veggie land, okay. The herbs are what you depend on with the animals more than the diet, in my opinion. Cats, you have to use all herbs because you can't get a cat into raw food. Their digestive tract, that would be not beneficial to them. So you can do something like that, my friend. Try to get your dog to eat the fruits and the veggies as they will. Some dogs eat cantaloupe, some dogs eat apples, some dogs eat grapes. Every dog's a little different. Some dogs eat vegetables, blah, 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 blah. You can see what you can do with your dog that way. But you're going to do the same thing with your dog. You're going to go into the adrenal glands, you're going to go into the kidneys, you're going to go into the lymphatic system. They've got thyroids, they got everything else too. You can always tell your hyperthyroid cases, can't you? Little chihuahua, buggy eyes. There's an old saying on a chihuahua, it's a Mexican on speed. They're funny. They are funny. Say what? She said, how many formulas can you use at once? When Jennifer gets through talking with you, you'll find that you probably are somewhere around 8 or 9 at a time. It just depends on the case.
For the animals?
You can get about 4 of them. You want the kidneys, you want a lymphatic, you want an endocrine gland or adrenal, and you can get by with 3 of them actually. If you want to get a little more into the GI tract, you can clean that up a little bit. If you want to deworm them or something, you use a parasite energy, you can do that sort of thing. As a rule, as a human though, you can do 7 or 8 formulas. Shania Twain was a good friend of mine, and she did 23 of them at once. Wow. She was married to Mutt at the time, and Mutt was doing like 17. It was like, you guys are nuts. Insane, because if I do 10 of them, I'm starting to feel it's too strong. It's not about how much you take, it's your appropriate focus. Yeah. You always want the appropriate focus, and kidneys are an appropriate focus. The adrenal glands are an appropriate focus. The lymphatic system, the GI tract, these are the center hubs of the body, the eliminating organs. The glands which literally control everything. The nervous system which literally control everything. Those are your appropriate focuses. And then if you have to pick up a liver, hepatic, or pancreatic, or lungs, you can do all that. You can add to that scope. But there's a basic scenario you want to get into.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be kidneys, lymphatics, and glands, and bowels. Essential. Because think the kidneys are bad, the colon. I had a friend that was a surgeon back in the 70s, and he said, well, I only saw one healthy colon in my entire life, and that was a 40-year-old dissection at Harvard. He said, I've never seen a perfect colon. And it's rare. They're twisted, they're spastic, they're ballooned, they're prolapsed. I mean, it's just a mess of what our diets have done to our GI tracts. And remember, GI tract cancer was number one for 100 years.
Wow.
Now they say, I think lung is or something, but I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. It's all a mess. So we're here to restore. We're like Mr. Clean. We're here to restore. And, you know, I have to tell you, they might not like this, but we're really glorified janitors. We have to go in and clean up the mess. Restore function of elimination. Got to clean the toilets. How's our time for break, guys?
That time.
Break time? We're
Break
over.
time.
10:34.
10:34. Let's do a quick break, and then you're on, baby.